friends. Can you identify that dog? That's Hawk. She's very happy today. Very happy. The weather has cooled down. We were just outside. She's feeling a lot better. Yeah, it's into the mid-70s now, and she's feeling really good. Huh? You're a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. Oh, yeah, you're a good girl. 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 Thanks for being here. And this is her channel, Huck TV. Some people made some fun of her name, and I told her about it. She got all upset. But that's life. She'll get over it. The couple of things. People complained, said, "Hey, I came here for missing person show, and you talked about mental health, and then you talked about this and that, and I'm not interested in that." Okay, I'm sorry. Can't please all the people all the time. What we're going to talk about today is a case that I'll bet you I've had 400 people say, "Dave, why don't you do this case?" When incidents have mass publicity, sometimes I have a difficult time figuring out why I would want to do it. I mean, there's enough information out there that if I do it, you'll say, "Well, why didn't you say this? And why didn't you say that? And why didn't you cover this? And why didn't you cover that?" That's why I usually don't cover those cases. Now, this case involves a woman who disappeared in the UK in a river. Nicola Bulley. This case was inundated by TikTokers. I don't watch TikTok. I never will. But the family was really upset because of the allegations made by some of the people on TikTok. I know why, and I'll explain that to you as we get into the case. But the facts are, it fits the profile of every other missing person case in the UK that's in a river, or in a pond, or in a canal. And unfortunately, people aren't very polite. And they're not polite at all online. And then when they say something online, they don't think about maybe the relatives are watching. Maybe the people who are really close to her are watching. And Nicole had 2 young girls. And as they get older, videos won't age well if you're not polite and understanding to the family. Every video I make, I try to do it with the intent in mind that somebody's watching from that family. And I know if it was one of my relatives that died and somebody made a crass, abusive, curt segment about it, I'd be upset. Now we'll get on. Nicola Bulley, 45 years old. She went missing January 27th, 2023. She lived with her partner named Paul Ansell. This is Nicola and Paul. They'd been living together for 12 years. They had 2 daughters, 6 and 9 years old. She was a mortgage broker and was doing really well in the business. Nicole was a smart lady, cared about her life and her daughters immensely. Had a dog, loved the dog. She even talked about the dog. She loved it so much. But on January 27th, Nicola did what she does almost every morning. She put her daughters in her car and drove them to school. How many times have we done that as a parent all around the world? And when your kids are 6 and 9 years old, the last thing in their mind is that when they're leaving that car, thinking that's the last time I see my mom. Doesn't even come across their mind. Well, she dropped him at school, and then nearby there's a parking lot to take a hike along the local river. She parked in the parking lot like she had many other times because she liked hiking near the river. She got out of the car, got her dog, and started on the hike. Dog's name was Willow. And she told friends that she loves Willow, and she probably treats Willow like it's her third child. So think about that. She really loved that dog. Not far down the trail, she stops at a bench that's right next to the river. This is the actual bench that she was sitting on. Bench, river. Interesting point. This river, I think in the US we'd call it a creek, but this river is probably no more than 10, 12 feet at its widest that I've ever seen in pictures. And it doesn't show how deep it is, but part of the embankments on some sides are steep, while other sides and other embankments are not. Now on this side, it's a little steep leaving the bench. But she was here, and I'll get into what happened. So at 8:43 in the morning, she drops her kids at school. At 8:47 in the morning, she's seen by another dog walker as she's walking her dog. At 09:10, she's recognized by other people in the area. Hey, Nicole, blah, blah, blah. And they see her. Everything's normal. The night before this happened, Nicola had her parents over, see the kids, have a fun night. Everybody had fun. Everyone said the night was great. Typical night with grandparents coming over to see the kids. So that was at 09:10 that the last person saw him. At 9:33 in the morning, a lady named Penny Fletcher is walking the trail and comes across that bench I just showed you. Comes across the bench. Willow the dog is on its leash tied to the bench, and a cell phone is sitting on the bench, and the phone is on, and there's an active call on the other end. Penny looks around, calls for anybody. Nothing. A very odd sight. What would you do? Would you walk away? Well, Penny decided that something was really wrong. So she takes the dog, takes the phone, goes to the school, which is right nearby, and they eventually figure out that it's Nicola's phone and her dog, and they call Paul Ansell, the other parent of the girls. And they find Nicola's car in that parking lot next to the trail. Now, what was determined is that Nicola was supposed to be on a call at 9 o'clock with her company, the mortgage company that she worked for. And she was on a conference call. She was still on a conference call when that phone was put down on the bench. Police were called. They responded to the river area. And it was thought from the beginning that Nicola must be in the river. Police come out and they interview Nicola's 12-year partner. And Paul starts to talk to him and explain their lifestyle, their background, their living arrangement, Nicola's ups and downs in life, all the things that you don't want the public to know, but the police are going to want to know. Now, when police are talking to you about this stuff, if you're ever in that position, there's a lot of trust there. There's trust that you're not going to use that against them. There's trust that you're not going to go blab it all over the state or the city or the country. Now, in a missing persons case, there's behaviors associated with people who disappear for different reasons. They would ask Paul, does Nicola have any disabilities? Is she taking any drugs or narcotics? Is she an addict? Is she depressed? All these things. And being a nice person, you're trying to open up and you're trying to explain to the police different facets of the life. Paul says, well, Nicola did have a problem with alcohol. In December of this last year, she's gotten over it. She hasn't had any problems. Parents were just over last night. Everything was good. She had premenopausal issue or postmenopausal issues. And she was taking some drugs for that. And she was better. Again, intimate medical details that you don't want to get out to the public. But there was never anything in there saying that she was suicidal, depressed that day, that morning, the previous night, nothing like that. Now, this transparency on the part of a victim's family is super important. So Paul did everything right. That first couple days, critical days in a search, the police call out and they start searching the riverbank. They're hiking all over the riverbank. They're putting drones in the air. Rumor starts to get out in the community. What's going on? Now, the area that this was in the UK, kind of in a rural area. The river W-Y-R-E. Kind of northwest. Well, we'll just leave it at that. This is the community. And that's the river that goes through town. I'm going to get back to you on this in a second and give you more of those details. Well, police are searching. They're not giving out a lot of details. And finally, they hold a press conference. Unbelievably, in the press conference, they talk about the details I just told you that Paul told them. I think I know why they did this, because other jurisdictions have done it as well. They want it to appear as though she probably took her life and she's dead and the search doesn't need to go on long. Except the public backlashed on them. Why are you talking about this? There's no need to, blah, 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 on and on. Oh, very true. They didn't need to tell the public any of that stuff. Police stated that Nicola had alcohol issues and was taking medication for postmenopausal things. Again, why are you telling the public that? And she didn't have any alcohol issues as of late. Police did find some people in the area that heard a scream at about the time Nicola disappeared. This is important because early on you don't know, is this attempted murder, attempted rape, somebody push her in the water, somebody attack Nicola? What is going on? Because at this early stage, the police are as confused as I was when I first read this case. You try to think of the scenario in your mind about why the dog is tied to the bench And why is a phone on a conference call seated on the bench? Conference calls, I'd put it on a speakerphone, I'd hold there and listen and talk. I think most of us would. Maybe I had tied the dog to the bench, maybe not, I don't know. But there were a lot of questions early on. And right away, the police didn't classify this as a critical event. And that took some heat as well. The police flew drones over the area, which they should have been doing. They walked the banks and they drugged the river. And after a couple days, they started to put divers in the river, looking for something, anything. And the family at the time was taking ongoing attacks from different online people. It was crazy. Why did you let her go near the water? Why did you let her go out alone? No, there weren't any issues. But the police had kind of laid groundwork that there were. Multiple dive teams searched that river during the first 10 days. Multiple. They weren't finding anything. They were looking for marks on the riverbank where maybe she fell in, tried to dig her heels in something. No, they didn't find any of that. They tried to find a place where she fell in the river. Didn't find that. Now, as I stated, there's part of that riverbank that is a little steep. Here's a picture of the river. Now, over here on this side, kind of steep. Over on this side, if you went over to this side, you should be able to pull yourself out. In fact, there's some places that are very low in the water where you could crawl out easily. Again, this is not a big river. 2 strokes and you'd be across the river. Police are giving updates as they go, talking about what they're doing, explaining that they haven't found anything, they're doing all they can. In the meantime, a 6 and 9-year-old girl, Nicola's parents, and Paul are all just flabbergasted that this could happen. Such a mundane thing. You're on a conference call with work, sitting on a bench next to a river near your kid's school. Right? But the scream. 10 days after Nicola disappears, the police, local police, decide, city's called St. Michael's, the local police decide that they're going to call in a specialized unit that has a dive team associated with it and also has a side scan sonar. Side scans are expensive. That river is almost the perfect place to use it in. Now, when I think of a river, I think of Montana River, flowing fast over boulders, white water. No, this isn't like that. I couldn't find any white water in that river. It might flow really well, but no white water. So this water team comes in and they start searching downriver from where they think she went in. And they search her for a good 10 hours a day, 3 days. So they gave it a great effort. Its leader is a guy named Peter Falding. Now stop for a second. I got to tell you that doing this kind of work is not easy. A lot of these rivers, you can't see your hand in front of your face with your mask on. Really. You're feeling around for things. And when you can't see real well, sometimes things just come up right to you. A face, a body part. Can give you really bad nightmares. And as you're feeling around, you're hoping that you'll find the body, but you don't really know what you're feeling for. Now they have the side scan. That side scan is an amazing piece of equipment. Like I told you before, I've been with a group that does this, and I've been on the boat looking at the computer panel as the side scans in the water. It's unbelievable. You could see a body in the water so easily, it's unreal. Really. Now, for 3 days, this team, it's called SGI. It's from the UK. And they're exactly for this kind of thing, finding bodies in rivers. Now, the owner said, "We thoroughly searched the riverbed and can categorically confirm that Nicola was not laying on the riverbed on the days we searched." He then made a statement saying, "If Nicola was in the river, I would have found her." And then he made a statement that Nicola may never be found. So you have a specialized team, the best in the country. And the guy who's the head of the team says, "If Nicola was in the river, I would have found her." What does that tell you? What does that tell you? She's not in the river. I mean, what can you do? I can only believe somebody's word. And when they are that advanced as this team were, and that fueled speculation immensely. And that was bad, because the attack started. Where's the suspect? Where's Nicola if she's not in the river? Now, in the UK, there have been many water-related disappearances in the last 20 years. People are getting concerned about this. People like me have started to wake up and say, there's something to all this. It took them a few years to get there, but they finally are. Now, the searcher stated that the river was really cold. Really cold, January, right? And they started to make statements that if somebody fell in the river, then they maybe have enough time to get out one scream, then they take a gulp of water and they drown. That's what they said. So, this team stayed in the water for 10 days, eventually came out, searched all the area they wanted to. They weren't restricted by searching certain parts of the river and don't search other parts, and wherever. They came out, and he said, Nicola's not in the river. All right. Well, they go on. They continue dragging the river. They continue drone activity, and things tailed off. People continued to walk the banks of the river. You know what happened. February 19th, 23 days after Nicola went missing. 2 hikers hiking next to the river, about a mile away from where Nicola went, supposedly in the river. They see a body. They didn't say the body was face up or face down. Police are called. Police immediately call for divers, the same team that said she isn't in the river. They sent up drones. They construct a tent. They close the river and all the area around the river, in all directions. Nobody can come close to this. The same diver who said Nicola wasn't in the river ends up recovering Nicola. Paul was notified about the recovery of the body. Very, very, very little was said. In fact, they said they didn't they had a body, but they weren't saying it was Nicola's right away, even though there was no other body missing. They didn't say what this person was wearing, what they weren't wearing, the condition of the body, nothing. Several days later, the coroner in that area of the UK confirmed it was Nicola. She was deceased. And they order an inquest and an autopsy. Autopsy, you know what that is. An inquest is essentially a public trial to expose the facts about what happened. I think it's a really good thing. I wish we had it in the US. And there wouldn't be all this secrecy about what really happens on cases. One of the first things the coroner says is that Nicola was alive when she entered the water. Okay. Every case I've investigated, I would say that was true. 2 people in the general area where Nicola went missing heard screams that morning. That morning. At about the time she went missing. Coroner stated that there was water in her lungs and the cause of death was drowning. Coroner said that there was no violence to the body, and they found her car keys on her person. Didn't say where, what pocket. And they found her Fitbit watch on the body. They explained that the Fitbit stopped recording that morning at 9:30. It lost power on February 4th, so about 8 days later. And based on the analysis and the phone data, they had an analyst state that at approximately 9:22, as they believe, 9:22 in the morning, on January 27th, she entered the water. Those are guesses, folks. They don't know. It's not like you enter a water with a Fitbit and it says something or changes. No. All guesses. But the screams, how do we know what that scream was for? Coroner stated, and other officials, that was probably happened when she fell in the river just before she went under and she was screaming. Okay. There were no witnesses to her going in the water, which fits with every other missing 411 person that goes in the water that I've ever written about. Exact match. Now, you had 3 sets of dive teams search for her in the river. The first 2 were in the river between the time she disappeared and that specialized team arrived 10 days later. The specialized team had a side scan sonar, which is super advanced technology. Should be able to see anything in the water. And then, on the 27th, they find her in the water. Searchers don't find her, just some walkers. How many times have I told you about people who have disappeared and they weren't found by a search team? They're found by people. How many times have I told you that? The coroner stated that it was very cold in the water that day. And he claims that when she fell in, she had that first scream and then gulped a bunch of water and drowned. Theory. Now, remember there were all these allegations by the police that she had alcohol issues. Coroner stated there was no alcohol in her system. How about that? Coroner interviewed a series of people, family, friends, co-workers. He said that there was absolutely zero evidence of suicide. He said that Nicola loved her dog as much as anyone you could imagine. And there was no way, if she had a chance, that she would leave that dog alone tied to the bench. And the determination was accidental drowning, which again fits the profile for every other case I've ever talked about. Now, if it was accidental drowning, explain how she got in the water? Oh, they can't. Explain to me where she went in the water? Oh, they can't. You know what else they didn't explain? Is how many days she was in the water based on the autopsy. Based on the autopsy. I never heard that. Why would they hold that back? I also want to know what was in her stomach. Had she been drinking coffee? Had she had breakfast? I want to know. Now, the coroner also said that there was one text on her phone at about 8:58 in the morning that morning. And that was another mother of a girl that her daughters went to school with, who were trying to arrange a play date for later on in the week. And they had traded dates and times, and they sent Nicola one, and she gave a smiley face, thumbs up, great. Planning for the future. If she wasn't planning for the future, I doubt she would have responded. So, what happened here? What happened here? Questions. The biggest question I have, why wasn't the phone in her hand? Why was it on the bench? She was on an ongoing conference call for her business that was important to her. Why would she put it on the bench? Why would the top underwater team in the country say Nicola is not in that river? Unless he was 100% convinced she wasn't in the river. After she was recovered, the lead diver tried to backtrack on his statement. He said, well, I didn't really mean she wasn't in the river as a whole, but in the area we searched, she wasn't in. She must have been in the reeds on the side of the river in an area we didn't search. Whoa, 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 whoa. Were you given an edict to search the river or not? If you were supposed to search the river, why wouldn't you search in the reeds? Did you just want to search the river bottom? Because that doesn't make any sense. No, when you search everything. Because you know what? You're the best team in the world. But the better question is, why not take the side scan as close to the riverbanks as you could, make sure that she wasn't there? Or maybe they did. Remember that old statement, local reports for local consumption. Remember that. And then the most important one to me is White in the corner state, per the autopsy, how long that body was in the river. So, she's found on the 27th. I'm sorry. No. She's found on the 19th. She goes into the water on January 27th. So she's in the water for 23 days. Water's cold. There's a lot of representations you can make about a body being in the water that amount of time based on the average temperature of the water. It's not rocket science. He didn't do that. I never saw one report that said what Nicola was wearing when she was pulled out of the water. It's important to me. First of all, was she face up or face down when she was found? I want to know that. Did she have her shoes on? I'd like to know that. Was she missing any clothing? I think it's important. Now, as we've stated, the police press unit took a lot of heat on this case. And there's a college of police in the UK. And they actually did an analysis on the job the police did. And they stated that the police should not have released that private medical information. And maybe those police will learn something from this. Don't do that. And they were too slow to declare it a critical incident, per the college's research. They also stated that information about the case was in a vacuum, and that bred conspiracy theories, meaning that the police weren't being real transparent about what was going on. And they said from the very first press conference, the police mishandled the information distribution. Now, people aren't going to like what I say about this. It's my own personal opinion. I think that the police in the UK know something really weird is going on. I think they know. Manchester, the UK, is just southeast from where this happened. They've had all kinds of people disappear in their canals. There's rumors that experts in Manchester have said, well, when these people fall in the river, they never even think to stand up and they drown. They said that. So you fall into a canal. It's 4 or 5 feet deep. You're not going to try to right yourself? They said, oh no, it's so cold sometimes that people don't even think about trying to stand up and they drown right there. When people are drowning, they're going to try to get their head up to the highest location. That usually means treading water. That really usually means being perpendicular in the water. That means your feet would touch the bottom. I've heard some ridiculous things looking into this case. I do think that the police think you're an idiot, and I'm an idiot. And I sometimes believe that they believe their own garbage. Because they know something unusual is happening, they don't want to be embarrassed. So they release as few details as possible about these cases. And when the college did the research, they said, well, the information's kind of been in a vacuum, which bred conspiracy theories. I think that's purposeful. I think they really want to hold back on the details. I know that they were not happy with the water search leader, Peter Falding, who said that Nicola is not in that river. So my question to you, was she in that river the whole time? This is really the first time where I heard of a searcher put their foot on the ground and say, person's not there. Pretty weird. Found in a place previously searched. Peter Falding said that his team searched that area where the body was found. He did say that. But he said, yeah, she must have been in the reeds. We just missed her. The family said that one thing that will haunt them for the rest of their lives is what happened to Nicola during that first minute she disappeared. What were the circumstances that she was faced with that got her off the bench, into the water, screaming for help? Friends, there have been many other cases where people have disappeared, and right before they disappear, they scream. Or they say, oh my gosh. It's as though they see something or they experience something that they just blurt something out. It's very strange. If you read Missing 411, A Sobering Coincidence, you know what I'm talking about. I feel horrible for her girls. They lost a great mom who cared and loved them a lot. And we may never know what really happened to Nicola Bulley. Thanks for being here. You are greatly appreciated. And kindness. Sometimes I think YouTubers and TikTokers really don't care about compassion, empathy. They just care about themselves. That's a huge fault. Huge. Huck moved over and is sitting right at my feet. Eyes closed. Now I'll get up and then she'll open her eyes, but she wanted to lean against my leg knowing, hey, you better not leave, Dad. See if I can get the camera down that low. Yeah, there she is. Right underneath. Sitting right by my chair. Be safe, be kind. Paulides out.